Just come inside the house, please." When I returned from work, a distraught housewife from next door was standing in front of my house. Seeing her shivering in the cold, I led her inside and offered her a warm bath and a meal. I couldn't help but be concerned about her situation, so I asked her about it, and inadvertently. 3 weeks later, a stern-looking man in a black suit came to my door. "Please accept this deed for $3 million. Huh? My name is Luke. There's nothing particularly outstanding about me. He is an ordinary businessman. But there's one thing that sets me apart from other businessmen. Both of my parents have passed away. It's possible that there are others who have lost their parents to illness or old age under similar circumstances. But mine is different. It happened about a month after I started working at my current company. Back then, I was still trying to learn everything and was completely overwhelmed. Then, a phone call came into the office. Aaron, my boss, turned pale and said to me, "Luke, listen calmly. Aaron, the police just called. Your parents were hit by a runaway car and have been taken to the hospital." What? Upon hearing Aaron's report, my mind went completely blank. The same was true for a senior colleague working at the desk next to mine, whose hands had stopped typing. "We're going to the hospital right now." Huh? "I'll drive. Pull yourself together, Joshua. You take care of things here." Understood. Hang in there, Luke. I feel truly fortunate to have had such supportive bosses. They immediately took me to the hospital and stood by me as I was in a daze. Upon arriving, a police officer in uniform welcomed us and led me to my parents. They took me to the morgue. I learned that my parents were just walking across a pedestrian crossing when an elderly driver crashed into them. Apparently, the driver had a sudden health issue while driving and died at the wheel. The cause of death was a heart attack. Naturally, the driver couldn't brake and continued to accelerate, crashing into my parents. Dad, Mom, After the police officer's formal report, I collapsed on the spot. Aaron set me down on a chair in the morgue, but I couldn't stop shaking. "Your parents died instantly. The driver who caused the accident also. The only small consolation was that my parents didn't suffer before passing to the other world. But that doesn't make the sadness go away. The family of the person who caused the accident came that day, and a man, possibly their son, deeply apologized. He looked about the same age as my father. "I'm so sorry, my father, I'm so sorry." Then Aaron stood up to protect me. "I understand that you've also lost your father and are, in a sense, victims as well, and I can understand your desire to apologize quickly. However, he has just lost both his parents at once. I don't think it's right to apologize to someone in such a state of grief." The man's shoulders shook at Aaron's words. "I'm sorry, I understand, but apologizing here and now is just self-satisfaction. You've also suddenly lost a family member, so your emotions must be all over the place. Please come back later with a lawyer to apologize formally." Aaron's firm stance was truly reassuring. Without Aaron, I might have lashed out at the man in front of me or accepted his apology and forgiven him. After Aaron spoke, the family of the perpetrator left, but not before Aaron comforted me with a gentle pat. "Aaron, it's okay. Take some time to rest. The company will take care of everything else, okay?" "Yes." Aaron's words brought tears to my eyes again. The company really took care of everything afterwards. They received compensation from the family of the perpetrator and arranged for a formal apology with a lawyer present. Thinking calmly, the person who caused the accident was no longer in this world either. Their family just kept apologizing. Since I had no one to direct my anger towards, I ended up just accepting the money and closing the chapter on this incident. Honestly, I didn't want to have any more involvement with the family that caused my parents' deaths, so it worked out. So today, I had to work alone from the house where I used to live with my parents. I was living these lonely days. My house is in a typical residential area, but many of the nearby homes are new and impressive. Especially the house to my right, which was large and had been vacant for a while. It seemed that someone had recently moved in. So someone has finally moved in. I thought this as I glanced at the moving truck. It was a large truck, so I was curious, but I didn't know who had moved in. I've heard that in apartments and condominiums these days, people often skip the moving and greetings due to privacy concerns. It must be a young family that moved in next door. In the end, there was no greeting from them. Even if I thought about greeting them in the morning, our paths never crossed during my morning commute. Still, I thought I'd greet them whenever we did meet. I didn't think much of it. A few days later, as I was returning home from work and was about to reach my house, I witnessed a woman in front of me whose paper bag tore, spilling the groceries she was carrying. Seeing the woman let out a small cry, I immediately ran over. I picked up an orange that had rolled to my feet and went over to her, but the torn paper bag would make it difficult to carry everything back. I offered her my reusable bag, which I always carry with me, and suggested she use it to carry her things back. But this is my place, I said, pointing to my house. The woman, surprised, said, I didn't know that. Something about the context felt off, and it turned out that the woman lived in the luxurious house next door. The woman's name was Evelyn. Evelyn was very thin, and her voice was frail and soft. Knowing that I lived next door, Evelyn seemed a bit surprised. Well, I can understand how she felt. After all, my house is a dilapidated building, far from being considered nice. I'm sorry, I just assumed an older person lived here. No, it's an old house, so it can't be helped. I responded with a wry smile to Evelyn, who seemed apologetic. I'm sorry for not greeting you earlier. My husband thinks that moving and greetings are unnecessary nowadays. I see. That's the trend these days. Many people think that it's unnecessary to interact with neighbors. I'll return this bag to you soon, so please wait a moment, Evelyn said, rushing back to her house. Saying that, Evelyn hurried back to her house. I watched her leave and waited a bit, and then Evelyn came back holding something in her hands. A neatly folded reusable bag and beautifully wrapped cookies. I'm quite confident in my baking, so here you go. Inside the adorable wrapping were cookies that looked good enough to be sold in stores. The simple, bite-sized round cookies had the homemade appearance of something made with children at home. Thank you. Did you make these with your kids? No, I don't have children. It's just my husband and me. I see. Yes, even though I'm the one who ends up eating them, I find both making and eating sweets enjoyable. Evelyn said with a gentle smile, clearly loving the process of baking. However, the fact that she was the only one eating them suggested her husband didn't partake in her baked goods. I'll gladly accept. With that, I politely unwrapped a cookie and tasted it right there. It was vanilla flavored, crumbling deliciously in my mouth. It was genuinely tasty, no flattery intended. So delicious. It's been a while since I've had cookies this good. Your love for baking really comes through. I shared my thoughts, including my gratitude. Evelyn probably hadn't expected me to unwrap and eat them right on the spot. After looking at me with surprise, she thanked me with a beaming smile. Thank you so much. That was the beginning. We didn't exchange contact information, but we started greeting each other more frequently. Sometimes, after I got home from work and turned on the lights, the doorbell would ring a few minutes later. Our old doorbell would make a ping sound when pressed and a pong sound when released. When I went to the door, Evelyn would be there, bringing me sweets. At first, I thought about refusing. After all, she was a married woman, and it wasn't exactly commendable behavior. But it was clear her actions were driven by a desire to have someone enjoy her baking. From our conversations, I learned that her husband Brandon was wholly devoted to his work and they rarely went out together. For such a young couple, with no children, it must be a dull existence. Maybe she's as lonely as I am. I couldn't help but notice Evelyn's loneliness. Unable to outright refuse, I began accepting her sweets and offering feedback. Yesterday's pastries had a great texture and went well with coffee. I like them. Those crunchy treats are perfect for snacking. They're the right size to munch on while working, so I can't stop eating them. Such comments became routine. Evelyn would leave with a joyful smile. This went on for weeks. I knew this situation wasn't right. Evelyn was married. Yet, I was growing fond of her presence. Having lost my parents suddenly, my chilled heart was warming up. Just seeing Evelyn's smile brought sunlight into my winter night-like heart, turning it warm like a sunny spring day. I never visited her home. I just waited for her to bring sweets. Then one day, Evelyn stopped coming with her treats. She used to come almost every other day, if not daily. Did her husband find out? If a man finds out his wife is visiting a single man's home to bring him homemade sweets, it's natural for him to suspect something inappropriate. I'm innocent, but from her husband's perspective, it's understandable he wouldn't be at ease. It's going to get lonely again. Since Evelyn stopped coming, I've felt a loneliness similar to when my parents passed away. No, perhaps even greater than that time. I've been zoning out more at work, causing concern for Aaron and Joshua. Having no particular hobbies, I find no joy in anything I do. Gradually, my appetite has decreased, and even foods I used to enjoy feel like chewing sand, making it even harder for me to eat. I felt my strength waning, and even though I knew this wasn't good, I felt helpless to change anything. Feeling a creeping sense of despair about various things, I was heading home from work one day. My body felt heavy for a while now, and I knew I needed to snap out of it, but I just couldn't find the motivation. As I looked up with that thought, I saw a figure in front of my house. The swaying shadow almost looked like a ghost. Huh? Of course, the figure wasn't a ghost, but its hair was unkempt. Not even sandals, let alone shoes, were on the feet. But there was no mistaking that the figure was Evelyn. Startled, I immediately rushed over to her. Evelyn. Up close, it was evident. Evelyn's clothes were filthy, and she wasn't even wearing a jacket. The current season is winter. Evelyn was completely frozen. When Evelyn, who had been hugging her arms, clung to me, I knew what I had to do. Evelyn, please come inside. I'm sorry. Her response was so faint, it was clear she was at her limit. I gently ushered her inside the house. I quickly lit the kerosene stove, set a kettle on top, and made some warm cocoa for Evelyn. Here you go. In the bright room, it was evident how terribly dirty Evelyn was. Moreover, being barefoot made her feet look chillingly cold. What happened to you? I'm sorry. I'm not blaming you. Why were you outside in such light clothing this season? The truth is, my husband kicked me out of the house. What? Evelyn began to sob as she explained her situation. She had been kicked out by her husband 3 days ago. In this cold weather, being thrown out with just light clothing was unthinkable. If it had rained or snowed, she could have easily frozen. You've been out since then. Where have you been staying? Well, it's embarrassing, but in a park. What? I was essentially homeless. Hearing Evelyn's reply, I frowned and led her to the bathroom. There are many things I want to ask, but you must be cold, right? Please use the bath. But I'm so dirty. It's a bath. Feel free to use my mother's soap and shampoo. I explained the soaps, shampoos, and hairdryer available in the bathroom. For a change of clothes, I offered her some that my mother used to wear. Though hesitant, Evelyn nodded as if she was looking forward to a bath after a long time. While she bathed, I prepared a simple meal. For tonight's dinner, we shared a serving of ready-made deli food and spaghetti meatballs from the local supermarket, along with a simple salad of just lettuce, cucumbers, and cherry tomatoes. Adding some soup and a dessert for after the meal would make it a complete dinner. If it were just me, I would have settled for just the deli food and spaghetti. As I finished preparing, Evelyn came out of the bath. Seeing the dinner for two laid out on the table, she tilted her head inquisitively. "Where are your parents?" "Oh, it's just me." "Yeah, I lost them in an accident." I hesitated to share this with kind-hearted Evelyn, not wanting to worry her, but there was no avoiding it in this situation. When I honestly explained that my parents had passed away in an accident, Evelyn shed large tears and mourned for them. That alone warmed my heart. "Then, these clothes must be your mother's, cherished by you." "Yes, but if no one wears them, they'll just get eaten by moths." "No, thank you for lending them to me." Afterward, we sat down to eat together. Evelyn said, "This is really delicious," and seemed to genuinely enjoy the meal, which made me happy, and for the first time in a while, I was able to eat properly. Then, I made some warm tea and listened to Evelyn's story again. Even if it might be meddling, sometimes pouring everything out can make one feel better during tough times. Evelyn's story was a harsh one. "My husband believes in male supremacy. He thinks women should just silently obey men, walk 3 steps behind a man, get up before a man and never go to bed before him. Does he have any love towards her? He yells at the slightest thing, and even when there's nothing wrong, he tells me I'm useless. If anything displeases him slightly, he doesn't hesitate to raise his hand. And finally, he said, 'That's why I told you I hate sweets. What's with this sickly sweet smell? Never make sweets again.' And he threw away all my baking tools, whisks, spatulas, everything that could be used for cooking, without asking me. I do all the household chores properly. Baking was the only time I felt relieved, and he took that away from me. I didn't know what to look forward to or strive for anymore, and I lost all will to go on." Evelyn, looking down, sniffled. My negligence in household chores enraged my husband further. "There's dust left. There should always be at least 5 dishes. There are wrinkles on the shirt." I endured it all, but 3 days ago, he said, "I don't need a wife like you," and kicked me out of the house. That's terrible. I wasn't wearing a jacket since I was inside, and I didn't have my wallet or phone with me. I had nowhere to go, barefoot. Evelyn, covering her face with both hands, was clearly distressed. "Did you contact your family?" "No, actually, my mother passed away a long time ago, and I was raised by my father. When I got married, my father was overjoyed. He said, 'Now I can rest easy.' I wanted to make my father feel at ease, so I couldn't rely on anyone and ended up spending 3 days in the park. I was at my limit both physically and mentally, and unconsciously. My feet led me to your house." Evelyn's story was quite severe. I'm sorry for the trouble. Not just today, but also before." "Yes. You must have realized I was bringing sweets because I wanted praise and feedback, right? I'm really selfish. I'm sorry." Evelyn apologized to me through her tears. "There's no need for you to apologize. Instead, let's go to your father's place." "But I don't have parents anymore, but you have someone you can rely on, and I think your father would be happy if you relied on him." Really? Yes, it's better to talk while you can. It's too late to regret not talking after losing someone. Convinced by my words, Evelyn cried again. The next day, I lent her some of my mother's clothes and a small amount of money, and she took a taxi back to her parents' home. 3 weeks have passed since I sent her back to her family. Suddenly, a stern-faced man in a black suit came to my place, and I almost wanted to pretend I hadn't seen him and close the door. I didn't because he introduced himself as Justin, Evelyn's real father. Believing his words, I invited him into my home. After seating him in the living room of my old house and serving tea, he composed himself and deeply thanked me. "Thank you for persuading my daughter to return home." "It's nothing. So, Evelyn, your daughter made it back home safely." I was relieved because I had been worried that her husband might interfere. "My name is Justin, Evelyn's father. She's a bit sheltered. I can't thank you enough for what you might have done if you hadn't persuaded her." Justin's words cleared up a mystery I had long pondered. So Evelyn was indeed like a rich lady. "Please accept this as a token of my gratitude." The tower mansion over there, the top floor 3 LDK. Here's the deed, worth $3 million. Please take it." He placed the deed to the tower mansion on the table. Shocked by the sudden offer, I tried to decline while pushing the deed back. No, I didn't help with that intention." "Then, what intention did you have when you helped my daughter?" Asked with a beaming smile, I found myself at a loss for words. But even if I simply claimed it was out of kindness, it's doubtful I would be believed. "Sorry, I fell in love with Evelyn. Of course, I had no intentions, and I haven't done anything. I helped her because I love her. I didn't want to see her sad. I honestly expressed my feelings. I've heard about you from my daughter, from meals to clothes, even lending her your late mother's clothes. I knew how sincere and good you were just from hearing about you, but now that I've met you, I feel it even more." With that, Justin offered the deed again, looking a bit hesitant. "That's why, would you consider moving to a new house? This house is, well, quite. My house is indeed old and dilapidated. Gusts of wind come in, and the insulation is cold as if eaten by rats." He must have heard about the condition of the house from Evelyn. That's why Justin, with good intentions, was trying to pass the deed to me. "This house is filled with precious memories of my parents who are no longer here. I want to stay here forever. I'm sorry. I appreciate your concern." When I sincerely expressed my regret, Justin shook his head gently. "No, you truly are a kind person. Please take good care of my daughter." He said that. Not fully understanding his true intentions, I was puzzled. But then, with Justin, I was able to get in touch with Evelyn again, and we were reunited. I was invited to Evelyn's family home on my next day off and treated to her homemade sweets. I fought so many times. Evelyn's sweets have a gentle taste. I was able to divorce him after that. Really? Yes, apparently, he was terrible at work too, being oppressive towards his colleagues, and he was about to be fired. Well, I kind of thought so. Given his behavior towards Evelyn, I had suspected he might act the same at work. Well, regardless, I intend to get a proper alimony from him. Evelyn, laughing, had become much stronger than before. According to Evelyn, I don't want to trouble you. I'll become strong. I'll do my best. With Evelyn's divorce finalized, our relationship officially began. There's a rule that a woman can't remarry within certain days of her divorce. It's apparently to clearly establish paternity if a child is born. We took our time and got married without a hitch a year later. Evelyn agreed to live in my family home, but given its condition, a renovation was certainly in order. By then, Evelyn's ex-husband, due to alimony and a demotion, had already left their large house. so I figured Evelyn wouldn't be troubled by him anymore. That was a relief for me as well. Considering Justin's feelings, he would want his daughter Evelyn to live in a proper home. Understanding this, I decided to renovate my family home. The renovation company was an acquaintance of Justin, and they understood my wishes well. Taking into account my desire not to erase my parents' memories, they managed to renovate the house while preserving its original charm as much as possible. A few years later, Evelyn and I were blessed with a long-awaited child. Gazing at the nursery we had prepared, thinking of a future child, I murmured, "It's important to cherish memories, but we must also value the future, right?" Now my wife, Evelyn, says, "Yes, that's true, but I also want to cherish the past. We have the present because of our past, after all. So, let's continue to create many more memories in this house and build our happiness." We smiled, expressing my gratitude to my parents in my hearts. As I gently caressed Evelyn's growing belly, smiling happily, I embraced the hope for our coming future.